Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is Friends and Fiduciaries. College roommates leave their Series 7s behind to build an independent business. It's a conversation with Christopher Griffith and Henry Wheelwright, co-founders and managing partners of StablePoint Partners. I'm Jason Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for Financial Advisors.
At Diamond Consultants, our mission is to help advisors live their best business life. We want every elite advisor to find exactly the right place for their business and their clients to thrive, whether it's at a wirehouse, a regional, boutique, or independent firm. As the industry's leading recruiters and consultants, we've transitioned more than $250 billion in assets under management in the past decade, and each year, 25% of transitioning advisors who manage $1 billion or more are our clients. If you'd like to talk, please feel free to give us a call at 908-879-1002. Are you a financial advisor who's curious about whether you're in the best place to serve clients, or if there might be a better way to optimize your business for the future? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a new book that serves as a self-guided journey, walking you through the key steps that Diamond Consultants takes with our advisor clients, whether considering change or not. Visit diamond-consultants.com/thebook to learn more.
I love a good best friend story. And while that might conjure up thoughts of movies like Lethal Weapon, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a personal favorite, or even Toy Story, which now that I'm a dad, I'll be watching more often, this story may lack the action or drama of those. But in the wealth management world, it's destined to become a classic. Chris Griffith and Henry Wheelwright were college roommates and best friends bonded by sports and similarities in goals. Together, they started their wealth management careers at A.G. Edwards. Then the duo moved on to UBS, where they quickly became known as rising stars. 8 years later, they transitioned to Morgan Stanley, garnering accolades from the likes of Forbes and building a business managing $650 million in client assets. Chris and Henry were always focused on their clients, driven to understand their needs and do what was best for them. Young yet accomplished, the team started to think more boldly for creative ways to serve their clients as their personal CFOs, helping to make a positive difference in their lives and those of their future generations. It was that thought process that led them to conduct due diligence with a focus on the independent space, where they could serve as true fiduciaries. And after looking at all the options available to them, from supported independents to different custodians, they landed on building their independent firm from the ground up on the Goldman Sachs custody platform. Just 1 year later, as StablePoint Partners, the team shares how it's going, their ability to better serve their clients, and their growth to $800 million in assets under management. They talk about their transition and why they chose Goldman over all others and their expectations for the future. It's a great story, so let's get to it. Chris, Henry, thank you so much for being here. Thrilled to have you on.
Obviously, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us. We're excited about it.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
Yeah, so to start with, can you both just walk us through your background and what brought you to the world of wealth management to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. This is Chris, and our world of wealth management for Henry and I started immediately after college. We were college roommates and best buddies and got right into this industry actually in college as interns, and then right out of college working together at A.G. Edwards, starting to build a practice. And it's been a passion of ours forever, and a lot of enthusiasm coming out of school about investing in Wall Street, and that really transitioned into, a career of helping people and serving clients and trying to help make a difference in their lives. And it's been an awesome run for 24 years now.
That's fantastic. And I heard offline that you were best men at each other's weddings, and it sounds like you guys actually still like each other too. So that's nice to see.
Yes, certainly the case. I think a lot of our clients always point out that it's rare to be in business with your best friend for over 20 years. So we're just so grateful. And we have a pretty close group here at StablePoint Partners of team members. And so just feeling very fortunate for what we have and the culture we're building.
Fantastic. So that's a good segue into StablePoint Partners. Let's start with the name. First of all, what's the significance of StablePoint? And then also just what kind of services you provide, who are your clients, and if you can give us a little bit of context on the size of the business as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, happy to do it, Jason. The name was quite a journey, and it took us quite a long time to get there. We put a lot of effort into it, many months developing it, a lot of back and forth, but got really excited about the name StablePoint. And honestly, it comes from our end, from I think a place of a feeling of an environment where we want to see our clients be, that they feel like they're at a stable point. The ground that they stand on working with a private wealth advisor is a solid one. And everybody here at StablePoint, that's our goal, is to deliver that stable point to clients where they feel secure, looked after, that they're on the right track, that they're safe, and that they've got an exceptional team of stewards working for them behind the scenes.
It's amazing. We hear from a lot of our guests how hard it is to come up with a quality name, either because you can't agree or because there are so many things that are already taken. So that resonates with me. I think it's a great name. Can you give us a little bit of perspective on the size of the business and the types of clients you service?
Yeah, this is Henry speaking now. We have a diverse group of clients, both geographically and from a wealth perspective. The firm is managing a bit over 800 million in assets and growing, looking forward to crossing that $1 billion mark. I would say our average client in our sweet spot is typically in that $5 million to $10 million space, where those clients may be business owners, may have accumulated wealth through working for publicly traded companies, or maybe just your traditional retired clients that have really realized that after amassing some of their wealth, having true private wealth advisors, a team of certified financial planners, I think true fiduciaries just makes sense for them. So proud of the diversity. As I mentioned, Chris was my college roommate. We started in the business when we were 21 and really built it one relationship at a time. And so we have some clients in range and net worth, but it's really the common theme of looking for a fiduciary and looking for some of the diversity of resources we provide that I'm sure we'll talk about.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, actually, maybe let's pretend that I'm a prospect or a client. And I think if you worked at Morgan Stanley, it'd be pretty easy to tell me what you do for a living. Chris, maybe I'll direct this one to you. How do you tell your story? So when somebody says, what do you do? My partner and I do X, fill in the blank for me.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. That's one that the old elevator pitch that we've been trying to perfect for almost 25 years now. And I don't think anyone quite gets it to where they want it. But our practice, the advisors that are here at StablePoint, all resonate about being really a full service private wealth provider, where we're looking at the full gamut of the financial life for a client. And honestly, probably at the end of the day, most of our clients look to us or the advisors that they work with here as their personal CFO. And we're involved with really every phase of their life financially, from obviously investment portfolio management, but also estate planning, income tax strategy and minimization, insurance and liability coverages, working with the next generations, which has been huge for a lot of the clients we've worked with for a long time now, that children, even grandchildren, are starting to work with the practice and making a big difference. That I think that would be our value proposition to clients, is really being that center sphere for everything in their life financially, and hoping to make a big difference, not just for them, but generation 2, generation 3 on down the line for the family.
Yeah, and it's obviously working to the tune of 800 million and growing in assets. So the story is clearly resonating. And I like the notion of being the financial quarterback, like the go-to team for when your clients have complex financial needs. I want to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the business. So maybe a two-part question here. Henry, I'll give you the first part, which is you made the decision to launch the business, the RIA, with Goldman Sachs as your primary asset custodian, and they're a fairly new player in the space. So Henry, my question to you is, why Goldman? And then my question, Chris, as a follow-up would be, how has that experience been thus far?
Yeah, Jason, I think that's a great question to ask. We were well aware, of course, of Goldman Sachs. We worked for many years for both Morgan Stanley and UBS. And I think both through competition and professional respect, knew about Goldman being a really well-run firm with tremendous resources, a great research department, and had some of the tools that we felt would be needed to serve not only just the clients of StablePoint Partners, but more importantly, the future clients that we hope to attract and are attracting now. So we did a lot of due diligence. It's a theme that you're going to hear from the two of us throughout this discussion. It was a multi-year process. We have a lot of respect for, I think, the core players, the Charles Schwabs of the world, and of course, Fidelity in the RIA space. Talked with them and we're very impressed. But I think Goldman Sachs really stuck out as an opportunity to accomplish a few key principles. Number one is this is a firm that wants to be unique and is intentionally unique in our offering. We believe in the team we have and the resources and the intellectual capital to think about something different. So why not partner with a very well-respected firm that we've known and competed against and actually have them be our partners? And that was a bold move. And I think Goldman is going to continue on their custody side to make us feel very good about that decision.
And Chris, let's pivot now. Do you feel like at least thus far, they've largely delivered? Any regrets about the decision? Still feeling good about where things stand with Goldman?
No, Jason, it's a great question. And there's no regrets at all. We're really excited that we made that decision. And you nailed it. They were a little bit early in the space when we launched a little bit over a year ago, but the people there have been unbelievable. We get responses back for our questions right away. There's a real level of white glove concierge that resonates with our practice and how we work with clients. It's made a huge difference. And I really think they're going to be a huge player in this space as time marches on.
Well, that's my thesis too, if I'm being honest, because to your point, especially for two people that look and feel like you, right? We both come from Morgan and UBS, two big, massive brand names. And presumably you have clients who, at least in part, care about those brands. And while Fidelity and Schwab, actually, especially in the area of the country that you guys are in, those are two massive brands. There's no question they're more down market brands than UBS, than Morgan Stanley, and certainly than Goldman. So my thesis is, and I think you've said this, is I think Goldman's going to be a very serious player in the asset custody space going forward, especially for the wirehouse kind of breakaway crowd. Do you feel, and maybe what I'm getting at with that is generally the wirehouse crowd, when they're launching independent businesses, needs an additional layer of support, right? Not used to running P&Ls, know nothing about real estate and health benefits. Did you guys find that you were able to get enough support from Goldman throughout that process of launching the business?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. And certainly Chris can pivot on that. The support has been tremendous. I think for the general audience that may be listening to this discussion, there's no doubt a lot of work, right? So you're going to have experienced folks that have been through it before that try to get in a very short period of time a keen understanding of who your clients are, who your team members are, and those that make up your firm. You hopefully have spent a lot of time with the personalities that are going to be supporting you and understand your vision. And I've transitioned, as you've alluded to before, from big wirehouses. We came into it with a mindset that we needed a firm that had experience in understanding the scope of the task. And what I mean by that is the people at Goldman, although new to the space, were coming from an point of experience at either other firms or had a lot of discussions or worked directly at a wirehouse. So we just felt like we were well prepared. We had a lot of resources, but although a new player, some voices that really resonated with what we expected, and it proved to be true.
Chris, anything you'd want to add to that?
No, I think Henry summed it up really well, right? One of the questions we get a lot is why no support partner? I think a lot of people have those conversations with those third-party organizations, which I think are really valid, and we did not. And I think Goldman was a big part of that. They provide us with a lot of support, a lot of expertise, and we really wanted to have that full control over exactly how we built the firm, knowing our client base, knowing what they needed, that everything that we did in this creation of Stablepoint was all around the client and how can we deliver better for them. So having that 100% control to build it the way that we want to was really important to us.
Yeah, so I definitely want to get to the topic of support partners, or in your case, lack thereof. But I want to first talk about the actual kind of way you established your independent business, because I think what's so interesting and unique about the landscape today relative to, let's say, 10 years ago is there's no cookie cutter answer to how to be an independent financial advisor or how to break away from a wirehouse. There are so many different ways to skin that cat. I would argue that you guys opted for the biggest leap. You opted to start your own RIA. I want to get a sense. So what else did you look at? Like, did you take a look at independent broker dealers and platform firms? So I'm talking about firms like LPL or Sanctuary or Dynasty. What else did you look at? And then, yes, you spoke about foregoing or not using a support partner. Can you talk to me a little bit about that thought process as well?
Yeah, Jason, that's a great question. And we put a lot of due diligence into this. We asked a lot of questions. We had a lot of conversations over a number of years. And we did spend a lot of time with those providers. We were really impressed with Raymond James, with their RJFS offering. And We talked with Sanctuary, we talked with Dynasty, and I don't think we left a stone unturned in this entire process. And you hit it. We made the biggest leap where we went all the way to launch our own RIA. We did it without a support partner. But the reason I think, leaned more towards the RIA structure versus like an IBD or an independent broker dealer was we really wanted to be able to be that true fiduciary for a client. And I think when you're on an independent broker dealer platform, whoever that may be, there's a lot of great ones out there and probably a lot of great fits for people. For us, truly being that fiduciary where we left our Series 7s behind at Morgan Stanley was really only achievable in that RIA platform and has made a huge difference in the client conversations we've had. And honestly, with the new clients that have come to us just in the last year, knowing that they're working with a fiduciary that isn't under the umbrella of a broker dealer, that isn't an employee of a big bank, has really resonated well and has attracted a lot of great people into StablePoint.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair answer. And I think that's probably what we hear most commonly from advisors who opt to go the RIA route. And in fairness, there's probably an equal number of advisors who would say the opposite, that it's just not worth the quote unquote brain damage. But from the advisors who do seem to enjoy it and who go that route, it's usually a combination of we had real entrepreneurial spirit and we just didn't want to sacrifice. We wanted to maintain maximum control, choice, and obviously the fiduciary standard for our clients. I'm curious though, because you talk about leaving no stone uncovered, I think is the term you used. Did you guys enjoy that process or did you find it onerous? Henry, maybe I'll ask you that first.
Yeah, I'm chuckling here looking at Chris. I think you need to be honest with yourself. Now that we're a year plus away from our launch, one of the great questions that people who we've worked with or know us in the industry have asked really goes back to your previous one. Hey, if you would do it again, would you have worked with one of the support partners, quote unquote? And we both paused because it was certainly learning on the fly under tremendous pressure. And for those that have transitioned their client relationships, your goal, of course, is always the client, making sure that their needs are addressed, their concerns are addressed. And I think that the support partners do have a valuable proposition for those that feel that's needed. They know their team, they know how they react under pressure. And I must say the professionals we interacted at all those firms should be applauded. They certainly make a case for value. We chose to do it on our own. A lot of that has to do with our personalities and dynamics. We're from the opposite ends in New York City, upstate. We're college buddies, we're best friends, and we grew our business with nothing and no resources. And to be candid, cold calling and seminars and really betting on ourselves or taking out the call option, if you will, on ourselves. So it was such a significant transition happening in our lives and us feeling like we wanted to get it right. We wanted to be in full control. And I think that's a lot of it. So was it a lot of work, a lot of pressure? Were there some, in retrospect, some action items that we would have done differently or some clunky moments for clients? You betcha. Do I know those wouldn't have happened with a support partner? I can't speak to it, but I'm sure there would have been less of them. But it meant a lot to us to be in control. And if I had any advice, which I've shared with a lot of my friends that are still at Wires that are watching what we've done, is you got to be honest with yourself, know what your life is outside of the office, know your family dynamic, and then, of course, have very honest, candid conversations with the team, because you're going to be rolling up the sleeves, going, quote unquote, to battle. And that's not for the faint of heart, as they say.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We get this question probably every single day of like, what's the best model or what's the best flavor of independence? And I always chuckle a little because this is why there's so much choice out there and it's legitimate choice. This is why these models are successful because there's no one right answer. Some advisors value that additional layer of support and other advisors are more do-it-yourselfers, maximum entrepreneurial. And that's, by the way, not to say, are there things that you guys would have benefited from or enjoyed from a support partner? Of course. But you made the decision that the benefits of using one were outweighed by the additional flexibility and the entrepreneurialness and all the other things we've talked about. How long did it take you, start to finish, the diligence process?
Honestly, it was 2+ probably 3 years of due diligence, a couple thousand hours of work, a lot of conversations, trips. And as we mentioned, we didn't leave any stones unturned, but a lot of time went into this for sure.
And do you guys feel like there was a moment, or maybe can you remember a moment from your wirehouse days when you both looked at each other and said, we got to get out of here, or we need to, or was this something that kind of built up over time where you'd always talked about it at holiday gatherings and at the bar, and then slowly but surely it became more real?
Well, and this is Henry here. I think there's two answers to that. The first is prior to transitioning to Morgan Stanley, we had considered the model, just given the nature of our entrepreneurial spirit. And we've always been just trying to be well educated to know what resources are out there, and more importantly, what our potential competition is doing. So we were familiar with the RIA model, but given stage in life where our career was, the scale of our business, went to Morgan Stanley. I think our real light bulb went on during the pandemic. And of course, to some of that, to no fault of their own, referring to my former wirehouse that I spent 8 years at, the pandemic really provided a lot of clarity and thought, I think, for many people. Number one is you had some time, like all of us, forced time to be working from home and at the office, and getting a sense of the responsibility you have to your clients and the responsibility to run your business when it's not as cohesive as you'd like. And that showed some shortcomings and, I guess, characteristics within our existing relationship with our firm at Morgan Stanley that just didn't achieve our expectations, or more importantly, the expectations of our clients. We were always thinking, and continue to think about here at Stable Point Partner, of being one or two people ahead of our clients' needs. And during the pandemic, because of P&Ls and policies and a lot of the things that those that are on this discussion and listening to us at Wirehouse go through, we just couldn't get to decision makers in time to really feel like we can meet the growing practice and the needs. So after the pandemic, I think we sat down with our team. Everybody was in agreement that if we're going to continue to do this and do it well for the next 20 plus years, we needed to think bold and take a leap. And for those on our team that weren't as familiar with RIAs, and we just talked about the structure of ownership and ownership in the direction for clients, they loved it. And we said, great, let's get to work. And that's the 2-year plus period is the pandemic really started an active due diligence process and discussion with our team and collaborating on building.
It's so funny because a lot of people say something similar. You would think COVID would have been pretty slow time in advisor movement, like a pretty scary time in the world, probably not top of mind for many advisors. But a lot of advisors, I think, came to the conclusion that you did, which is, number one, the walls aren't listening, right? You have the freedom and the time to have those conversations. And number two, you're probably a little less reliant on the firm than you thought you might have been. It gave people pause, I think, like, well, I'm not really engaging with the firm that much. And that's not a knock on your predecessor firm. That's people from any captive model, I think, would have said something similar. So we absolutely saw like a wave of breakaway activity shortly after the pandemic, or for, I think, similar reasons to what you're describing. I am curious, though, you talk about 2 years of really active diligence. What about the transition process itself? How long do you think it took you? So you resigned on whatever, January 1st. How many months before you said, we're really up and running, we got this?
Yeah, up and running, you got this. You got this is quite a term, and it's an open one. We're sitting here a bit of a year away as we're recording this. It's the week before the holidays. I've been really trying to reflect on how grateful I am in many ways. In many ways, it feels like a long year. And when we think back to the first, I would say, 4 to 5 months, they were challenging, not on the transition from clients. Like all of us, we all feel like we have the best clients. I can tell you, when you make this investment on behalf of clients, you put the confidence in yourself, you put your quote unquote personal needs at risk when you resign from a firm and not take a deal. Our clients stepped up. It was just the pressure and the responsibility that we felt we had to give back and execute. So those first 4 to 5 months, it wasn't like, hey, you got this. You're absorbing new platforms. Your team is learning a new set of processes. You're talking to clients as regularly as you ever have, but probably going the extra mile as an advisor to really pay back that support that they've had in us. So it took a first half of the year. We're incredibly excited. I don't know if we'll get to it in this discussion. Really, year two is just an exciting place to be. We got the initial transition done. We've added a number of things at the firm, but the whole reason why we created a RIA was to expand and do something unique. And when you have the right minds and you're in partnership, as I am, with somebody that you trust implicitly, who's very bright and can think the same way you do, you just keep building. So year 2 is like, we got this, but the got this list is getting longer, more in depth, and more sophisticated.
It's an awesome answer. It's interesting to me when we hear people who fear the idea of launching an RIA, the transition itself is usually what they fear the most. And I think most people could understand exactly what you're saying. Like the start of year 2 is an exciting time. Like I think if you could plop people into that spot, they would sign up for it. I think it's that first year that really scares people. So I'd like to ask a little, and I certainly do want to hear about some of the exciting things you guys have planned for year 2. But before we get there, I want to ask what I'd consider, again, if I have to think about what are the 3 things people fear the most with launching a business. Number 1 is clients won't follow me or my assets won't be portable. Not a whole lot you can do about that piece. But number 2 is like, how do you figure this thing out? So Black Diamond, for example, or Orion, or the decision to use Goldman and finding the office furniture and getting the little K-cups you didn't use a support partner. So how did you guys cobble all of that together? Was it just painstaking, one step at a time with Goldman's help?
Yeah, Jason, that was a long process, right? And I think that is definitely, I think, a pain point. I a lot of friends in the industry, and we talk all the time about what we've done and why we did it. And I do think there's a comfort level with the big wirehouse and the big firm. There's a nice warm blanket there of everything's taken care of for me. I don't need to think about that stuff, and I don't need to do that stuff. And was picking out office furniture our favorite part of building StablePoint? Probably not, right? That's a necessary evil. And I think we did a great job of it, but we had a lot of help from Goldman. They've got fantastic people there. They've got a wealth of knowledge around tech stacks and other things that we want to put in place for our clients, like Black Diamond, like Wealthbox. So to be honest with you, outside of the furniture, we had a lot of fun building out the tech stack, the platform, the custodians, being able to have that customization where almost 20 years at a wirehouse, you use what's given to you. And I think a lot of times you sit there and say, man, if I could have this, or if I could do this, I could make a bigger impact for my clients. And that was that opportunity for Henry and I to go out and do exactly that, to say, look, I'd rather have this and I would really like to have that. And we were able to put that in place. So it took a long time to piece it together, but to be honest, it was a lot of fun. And now it's easy. It's plug and play. It's that warm blanket that a wirehouse would be for others that may join us in the future. But it definitely took us a while to get there. Hopefully we're not buying office furniture every year again moving forward, but it was a lot of fun piecing it together.
Yeah, I could see that. I think what you're alluding to is the chassis is the lion's share of the work. And now I think the fun part is if there's a piece of technology or an additional capability you need, bolting that on to the setup you guys have is in theory a lot easier and a lot more plug and play than the process you underwent to get the entire business off the ground. So I don't blame you for being excited about year 2. I am curious though, a lot of those activities you just mentioned are what I would consider business running activities, not necessarily financial advisor activities. Said another way, if you ask a wirehouse advisor about a lot of those things, they'd say, I'm not doing it and I never have. How has your time breakdown changed, your personal time changed now that you've moved to an independent model? Are you now much more CEO business runner and less time prospecting and talking with clients? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. And it's one that actually we spent multiple dinners and a few adult beverages, speaking of myself and Chris, leading up to the launch. We realized that we enjoy life. And this isn't just an advertisement. If my clients were sitting in the room with me and listening to this discussion, I like being an advisor. I am inherently a New Yorker that loves people. I think everybody that excels in this business has the impact that they can make in people's lives, but inherently are extroverts that like to be in front and grow their practice and learn from clients and create some quote unquote wins and do all those things. And it was one of the discussions we said, hey, listen, everybody that tried to talk us away from RIAs, and if you talk to most other wirehouses, if there's somebody that's being recruited by another wirehouse, they're going to say, oh, you're crazy, right? You're not going to be a financial advisor. Who's going to run payroll? Who's going to pay the bills and rent? Who's going to handle all the vendors? And so our answer to that was, we better hire some people. And this is the opportunity to really affect change, right? To look at your business like a business, surround yourself with quality individuals. They don't necessarily have to be from the business. We're fortunate to have some new hires that were not with us in our previous career that came from other industries. One was a client, another was a neighbor, both bright, high moral compass, understood what it means to be a client. And we began to say, all right, we need to bring somebody in to be a CFO. Matt on our team is handling a lot of our strategic operations, which is code for helping us spend more time in what we do best, which is being financial professionals, planners, private wealth advisors for our clients. And that has to be a focal point if you're thinking of going to an RIA. If you cannot answer that, your clients are going to see through that. And more importantly, you're not going to feel good about it, because nobody wants their client to feel like you've lost that connection. We all get the same feeling when somebody, and it's happening a lot this time of year, reaches out to you or a member on your team and says, hey, thank you for all that you do for us, our family, our children, our business. And so that's my message is it's hard work. You better have the right people around you. And I think it's okay to be a CEO, but then you better have the people that have the rapport to be the advisors for your clients. It's going to be very hard to do both.
That's what I was just going to say. I don't think there's a right answer to how you should be spending your time as the leaders of StablePoint. I think it's just about being really clear with each other and really clear with your clients on what the plan is. And that will obviously evolve over time. I think as the business grows, it probably has to become a little bit more coach and a little bit less player. But I think those strategic conversations, people sometimes overlook that. You almost add an additional job to the mix in that a wirehouse advisor has to worry about being a financial advisor. Yes, they run a team and they might run a little bit of a business within a business, but at day's end, they're a financial advisor. In the model you're in now, you are certainly still a financial advisor, but you're also a business owner and the operator of a business. So I think that answer is spot on. It sounds like you guys so far have found a nice way to walk the happy median, if you will. So let's shift gears now. I want to talk about, before we talk about what the future holds for StablePoint, because I'm very interested in that, I first want to do the retrospective, looking backwards. Are there things you miss about the wirehouse world?
Yeah, I think, Jason, no matter what I think we all do in life, the next chapters of the story, as exciting and as amazing as they are, we always look back and miss something. And we are fortunate in our years at the wirehouse to have worked with some really great people. And I think that's probably the single biggest thing that I miss is just amazing people that you built relationships with, that in order to go and do this, you had to go a different direction. So we certainly miss the people that were there. A lot of great folks at Morgan Stanley, UBS, before that, AG Edwards. And that's the big miss here. But we've got some great new relationships, great people that we've had an opportunity to meet that we never would have known had we not done this, which has been really exciting.
And what about the actual, let's call it the nuts and bolts of the transition? What was that like? The process of transitioning accounts out of a wirehouse, as expected, surprises, smooth?
Well, I think for most, obviously technology's advanced since the last time we transitioned our business from UBS to Morgan Stanley, which was in 2015. There was a lot of paper then, and things are done electronically now, and you have DocuSign and the alike. So just if you're on this call, it's certainly scalable and much more efficient to execute the nuts and bolts from the client perspective. What remains the same is the speed and need for a lot of discussions. Everybody is going to have a little bit of a different backdrop on how they handle or what they may or may not be subject to, protocol and alike. I would say that, and this is a credit to our Goldman Sachs custody team, shout out Lauren and Bill Dalton and a lot of the folks that really got us prepared. Much like what most people experience in a transition, you're going to have some assistance, but you're going to be ordering dinner a lot. So that part was fine. I certainly don't think it's positive to speak negatively about my former firm, but I guess I would say advisors should expect that there's going to be competition for their clients. There's going to be a lot of different voices, some of them more positives than negative. And there's going to be a bit of a feeling of disappointment, perhaps. And I stress perhaps because every firm is different. But there's going to be some points in which you're like, wow, I love these people. Or my former colleague that was down the hall is potentially going after my client. And that's just part of transitioning, whether you're going to an RIA or another firm. But in today's world, in 2024, big firms are going to compete. And certainly Morgan Stanley had every right. And we came into it saying, hey, client has the right too. Here's our vision. We're proud of it. We're proud of what we're building. We feel like it's the right thing for clients. So if you have a few surprises and they don't come along, that's okay. That's the whole thing about relationships. Fortunately for us, and the reason why I'm not sleeping on the couch, because my wife is very happy with our wonderful transition. We had very few surprises, but honestly, we did on one hand have a few clients initially just not understanding it, and that was okay. So anybody who's been through it and been in the business as long as we have knows that's part of the process. And I guess I'm a little more mature today than I was when I transitioned some years ago. I really believe in empowering the client and wanting to work hard and for people that want to be with me. So like the best thing about a RIA launch, and I'll finish with this, is you're going to find out really quickly, who your clients are that you want to put in the work for. And there's something awesome about that. And that's what you should go into it with. Also make sure you're prepared with your P&L to not lose a whole bunch of clients, but be prepared to really work hard and win the clients and support them. And you'll find out quickly that's going to be rewarded.
Every advisor we've ever transitioned to an independent model or otherwise would tell you, is the transition a pain? Yes. Has transitioning gotten easier over the years? Also, yes. Will there be surprises in both directions in terms of clients that come and don't come? Also, yes. I think universally those things seem to be true. What about surprises in terms of, I'm not talking about clients coming or not coming, but in terms of capabilities, are there things that you can do now that you're in the RIA space that you couldn't have dreamed of in the wirehouse world? And can you give me some examples?
Yeah, Jason, there's been a lot of great surprises. I think one of those has been, as I mentioned before, just the attractiveness of what we built to new clients, and being that fiduciary, having that relationship with Goldman has been a pleasant surprise just to see how many new folks have joined us in this last 6 or 7 months. It's been really wonderful. But from a day-to-day perspective, there are a lot of things that we can do now that we could not do before when we were at a wirehouse. And I'll give you an example. When we wrap up our call here today, Henry and I are going to take a few minutes and shoot a video on some market commentary of some of the things that have transpired in the markets over the last week. And we'll have that out and ready to go to clients within 90 minutes with compliance disclosures and everything done the right way, submitted to our third-party compliance company. But we're able to communicate what we are feeling and experiencing on topics that matter to clients in a timely manner. And that's been a huge difference maker for us, both with video content or emails, but also on the marketing side too, where social media platforms are available and opportunities like that to get a message out. So to be able to move quickly, get a message out, that's been probably the biggest game changer for us in this space.
That is the answer that we get most commonly. And not to keep bringing up COVID, but during the crisis or the pandemic, what was eye-opening for a lot of advisors was that was obviously a time of immense fear and uncertainty and rapid change, mostly on the part of clients, but obviously advisors as well. And advisors like yourselves wanted to put out smart, timely commentary, and they just couldn't do it because the compliance approvals and review times were such that by the time something was ready to go out, it was already stale. And most people who launch independent businesses, even if all they want to do is launch a very vanilla planning and investments business, which it doesn't sound like that's your ambitions, but even if it was, even those folks report meaningful pickup in terms of flexibility on the marketing side. So that certainly jives with the experience we hear from other such advisors. Do you think your clients appreciate that? Like, have you heard directly from clients like, hey, this has been a better experience in that regard?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of feedback, particularly from our weekly videos. As Chris said, we have a tremendous compliance team here locally, and anybody that's been in the business knows how to handle commentary on markets appropriately. But we're able to talk on a Friday basis and send out to our client base and to the general public our comments on what's moved the market. And that's an old thing, right? We used to send white papers and things got caught up in email and you weren't really sure if your clients had the opportunity to watch it. And there's been some interesting feedback that we've had recently. Number one, there's some relationships that Chris may spend more time with, or one of the other advisors at Stablepoint spends more time with. So if I'm talking for 3 or 4 minutes on what's happening with yesterday's Fed move or something timely in the news, they get an opportunity to see me, watch me in motion. Video is how people absorb content, particularly if you talk to any marketing professional. Short videos are very valuable. So it does serve as a way to connect and put that whole face and voice with somebody that perhaps that particular client and business relationship doesn't get a lot of time with. The second is it's really expanded. Chris talked about one of our great surprises. We had a tremendous amount of growth of new clients, and had a client recently saying, hey, I forward your videos to a lot of relationships as a way, as I say, to look in the store window without walking in and being solicited by a salesperson. I use that as just an analogy, and I say it a lot. It's intimidating when you're talking about your wealth, the privacy of your financial decisions, your financial plan. So somebody may want to look for another advisor or have an opportunity that they've never had to talk to a private wealth group like StablePoint Partners, but to see the various people at the firm talk and interact, I think takes some of the hesitancy and the initial friction and makes the initial rapport building a little easier. And it's led to a great referral source.
Yep. No, it's a great point. I think that's the other piece we hear from a lot of advisors who make the leap to independence is in some ways, it's almost like a new growth engine because you become much more referable. I think there's something to be said about growing via, it's a new, exciting story to tell. And I think clients pick up on that. Let's shift gears now. I'm really excited to hear this next segment. We'll call it StablePoint 2.0, or what does StablePoint look like in the future? I'll let you pick the time horizon you want to talk about. I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years, or certainly 2 years. I'd love to hear what is on the near-term horizon for StablePoint, and what do you think the next couple of years or chapters look like?
Yeah, that StablePoint 2.0 is something that Henry and I are obviously very excited about. The whole team's really excited about it. We've got a few projects that are front and center right now, which in the RIA space, right, having the capability to go out and build something on your own to invest in is really exciting. And we're hopeful by May or June to have a launch of the first StablePoint Private Opportunities Fund, where we're going to launch a private alternative investments fund, really to enable access for clients to vehicles that we wouldn't have had access to before and go direct to some of these great providers. That's been in the works for some time, and really excited to see it. We have a lot of examples of that, of things that we're building and creating to make the experience for clients even better. But I think what we're also really excited about are hopefully the addition of other like-minded people like us, that they put their clients first. They're a fiduciary and want to do the right thing above all to expand StablePoint. And I think that's beneficial for clients to build scale. It's beneficial for all the advisors here at StablePoint to have other voices and other opinions. And our hope in the coming years would be to find some like-minded people that want to be doing the same thing for the clients that we have been doing, and open some additional office locations for StablePoint and grow over the coming years with a short list of the right people.
Excellent. Henry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's such a big topic, and it's one that we spend a lot of time intentionally as a group thinking about and discussing, and it's the year two joy. We had our vision event, our big annual event that we retitled, right? For those in the business years ago, it was a client appreciation dinner, some keynote speakers, an opportunity to hear the thought leadership on what we were thinking as a group. And that term group was the world we lived in, wirehouses. So as soon as we had an opportunity on the RIA side, we said, hey, we're going to call this event every year Vision. We're going to do breakout groups. We're going to start to have a format that a lot of our listeners, or quite frankly, you've perhaps experienced, where we had 175 guests. For those that wanted to come early, we had some industry experts, private equity, infrastructure, talked about estate planning, had a local real estate expert come and speak, and began to build out what I think really is at the core of any consultant. It's what you do for the clients of Diamond Consultants, is educate them, right? Provide counsel and advice. So our vision is to reimagine wealth from that center place. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily just about investing. It's not necessarily, quote unquote, the table stakes of having CFPs and financial planners. It's who can create connections that are meaningful, relationships that can be trusted, and then educate. And there was an expansion. And if I think about 5 years or 10 years from now, we're both in our mid 40s, and I laugh a bit, but we still feel like the same two guys cold calling in our early 20s, just trying to make sure we could pay our rent together in Boston. we want to build something that you're proud of, that you can compete against any firm. And the best firms are going to have flexibility to reimagine the client experience based on what your clients are telling you, right? Not what a firm is telling you, what your clients, we are here to serve our clients. And that's our vision, is listen to the clients, have them provide candid feedback, trust in those relationships. If that feedback is critical of something you have, then fix it, replace it, right? Think differently about who you have. And we had 175 clients and guests, and I finished the evening just with 3 common words, is like, I'm grateful, I'm inspired, and I'm motivated. That's how I feel at StablePoint Partners right now. And maybe I had a few cups of coffee today, but I'm genuine about it. It's a rebirth of your career to really think about clients first and be successful as a brand, successful for your family, and do them both at the same time.
And you get to be on fabulous industry podcasts like this one. I'm just kidding. This is that was a great answer.
I must say, we're listeners and fans. We should have started the conversation there. Listeners and fans.
I promise I wasn't fishing, but I think the way you summarize this, and I made a little note on the margin of my paper. I think I asked you about 12 questions. You used the word client, or you spoke through the lens of your client in every single one of them. And that to me is the name of the game. It's, of course, there needs to be enough in it for yourself, your families, your teams, right? There's other stakeholders in this business, but the most successful launches we see are client driven. It's about what can we do for our clients to serve our clients better. Do you agree with that sentiment?
100%, Jason. And everything we did from the core of this years before the launch was about the clients and making the world a better place for what we can do for them. And it's still there today. And any success we've got, it really only comes thanks to them.
Yep. All right. So in conclusion here, I always ask any advice you'd share, let's say specifically to your wirehouse peers who are listening, or ex-wirehouse peers who are listening to this, and maybe they feel scared or they're curious about independence, but they're just uncertain about it. Any advice you have?
Yeah, I'll start with that. This is Henry. My advice is a pretty simple one, which is have confidence in yourself. And one of my mentors, who's still at a wire, and we talk a lot, he used to say to me all the time, think big. You only have one turn at this life thing. We have the best career, in my opinion. And I just think you have one run at it. So you got to think big. And there is no perfect time. It doesn't exist. Mark it up, mark it down, the right managers, the right firm. There's no perfect time. It's the way life works. So I still think a lot about that. And the longer we get in life, you understand the fragility of health and happiness. So like, we just try to think big every single day, embrace the moment, be gracious and grateful for it. And my advice is, hey, there's not going to be a perfect time. So make an educated, well thought out decision. And then you got to make a move, or just be resigned to the fact to make the best out of your experience of where you're at.
Excellent. Chris?
Yeah, no, Henry, I think you summed it up well. And as we mentioned, Jason, we're fans as well of the podcast. And I think listening, I learned a ton just listening to everyone that you guys talked to in the years past. But listen, read, ask questions, have conversations with people that have done something that you might be thinking about doing. And I think what Henry said, there's no perfect time to do it, but everybody that we talked to in our journey, the common thread that we heard from across the board was, I just wish I had done this sooner. Right. And I would put that out there to anybody at a wirehouse thinking about that, is there is no perfect time, as Henry mentioned, but if it's in your world to think about, to get started sooner rather than later is good. And take a look in the mirror and just ask yourself at the end of the day, am I working for my clients or am I working for my firm? And if you have to choose between those two, which one are you going to choose?
Well, these were fantastic answers. I'm so grateful for your time and your expertise. You guys were very generous with sharing what you learned and the lessons. I'm so excited to see what the future holds for StablePoint. I know it'll be incredibly successful, and I'll have to have you back on in a couple years and you can share the StablePoint 3.0 blueprint.
We'd enjoy that very much. Obviously, we've appreciated the time, and we were sincere in it. Resources that you provide to folks to make this big decision are very valuable. So I applaud people that are helping our industry make good decisions that have good outcomes for clients. So we're grateful. StablePoint's going to keep charging ahead, and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thanks, gents.
Thanks, Jason.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.